But in all seriousness, I think the identity crisis, right? I think that is there is so much into that, just that alone, where you went through your own identity crisis. I think there's people that are going to listen to this podcast right now, and they've been walking a path for 10 plus years and they're miserable, or, they're walking a path that they truthfully don't want to do, but society is telling them that's what they need to do. They need to graduate college. They need to apply to get a job. Like, what's the advice, knowing what you know now, going through an identity crisis? What is something that you wish you had known then that you didn't realize until you got through it?
I'm going to breathe into this one for a moment and get ready to say some stuff I normally wouldn't say on a podcast, but it's coming to me right now and it feels true to share. So let me breathe into this for a second.
Honored. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bob Bay. Each week with our guest episodes, I try to put the spotlight on someone who in my eyes is living their most authentic life. Today's guest is from Richmond Hills, Ontario. He's a serial entrepreneur who started and sold an electronics store in Toronto, a restaurant in Hermosa Pier. You might have seen him on season 7, episode 23 of Shark Tank for the Cool Box. In 2015, he started what was formerly known as Dollar Beer Club, now Beer Club, a men's subscription beer care goods company, which he helped grow to 50 million plus in sales before exiting. Through his viral content as CEO, they created viral videos that accumulated hundreds of millions of views. He's now the founder of Viral Response, helping brands tell their stories in 60 to 90 seconds max. If there is anyone that should be nominated as the beard god, it is this man. Today on the podcast, Christopher Stoikos, brother.
Bob Bay.
Here we are, baby.
An introduction for the books. I've never had somebody go in that much detail in perfect linear order and capture my journey in that beautiful of language. So thank you.
Oh, it is an absolute pleasure. What's really it gets me the goosebumps that I'm like talking to you right now, because it was 2016, spring of 2016, when I was graduating college, didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and then kind of started stepping into the podcast space. But fall of 2015, early 2016, I came across, and this is one of the OG Dollar Beer Club oils that I still got. This is the OG one, okay? It says it, Dollar Beer Club. Dude. So let me tell you right now, I didn't consciously realize it in the time, but as I started to get into the content space in 2016, I was trying to figure out my personal brand. I was trying to figure out who I was in the creative space, and you inspired me to triple down on this bearded man brand. It was like my senior year of college that I started confidently growing the beard. I got this oil. I was seeing your viral videos, and I was like, if this guy can just own the beard, I'm going to become that guy. And without really realizing it until I was really thinking about it when prepping for this podcast, but I think you really consciously implemented into my brain that I could become the bearded man. Before the podcast I used to host was called Purpose in the Youth. It was great, but I need to give credit where credit is due, and I don't think I ever would have ran with the Bearded Man branding or had this podcast, It's the Bearded Man, if it wasn't for you.
Thank you, Bobby. That means a lot. I remember we connected briefly a few years ago and exchanged a few emails. And I always felt that you had a phenomenal vibe and that you were somebody who was on his toes and ready to make differences happen in this world. So congrats, dude, on finding that courage and stepping into it, because now you're sending ripples on how people can align with their inner presence and be able to tap into what their purpose is.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. From the jump of just getting into the podcast space, it's always been provide value for the listeners, provide a great experience, hopefully for the guests, but then also as well as for the listeners. And that's what we're going to do today. I think one of the biggest shifts that I can even feel it and see in you from 2016 era, right when you were obviously in the peak of Dollar Beer Club to now. And I've heard you talk about in previous interviews is like you are one is the beard's coming back. The beard I could see is coming back through the webcam. That was a shift, but it's coming back. The second thing that I can feel is you would really project high energy through the content, through viral videos, through your interviews. And I had heard you talk about, I forget what the podcast was, but it was probably in 2019 where you just kind of recognized like this wasn't sustainable to always be the guy that's like high energy in the spotlight. I'm just kind of curious, like, what was that shift for you? How did you recognize like, maybe I don't need to push out all this energy at once, and maybe I should conserve it for myself and actually put it into the places of my life that matter the most to me?
Incredible recognition, Bobby, because I still got it right here, dude. And for seeing me right there, if you needed me to come out and hype this stage up, let's go. But I actually use my hands now to spin back a little bit. Let's dial it down.
Let's dial it down.
Because I've learned to be a lot more conscious with my words. I learned that the root origins of the phrase abracadabra means with my word, I create. And on more than one occasion, I started seeing exactly what I would say enter the face of my reality, and both things I wanted and didn't want. So the high energy I would project, the opposite of projecting high energy, I would say, is I'm putting out grounded energy. And that's where I'm at more now. And the shift took place when I had my first daughter. Children are on the ground. They are naturally in the moment, very present. And although a lot of the high energy I projected was incredible and inspired a lot of people and motivated a lot of people, it came from a place of anxiousness inside myself and an inability to stay in my feet, in my breath, and in my center while I shared what I was putting out there. So, first daughter, I went through an identity crisis from being the hype, excited, successful Beard Club guy, CEO of Beard Club, to dad, a year later, husband, less than a year after that, dad for the second time. And it rocked my world. I was faced with a slew of challenges that I had a choice to either sink or swim. And I chose to swim. I chose to meet my emotional body and my wisdom where it wanted to go. And that involved losing the beard and taking it off for about 4 years almost.
Wow. But in all seriousness, I think the identity crisis, right? I think that is there is so much into that, just that alone, where you went through your own identity crisis. I think there's people that are going to listen to this podcast right now and they've been walking a path for 10 plus years and they're miserable, or, you know, they're walking a path that they truthfully don't want to do, but society is telling them that's what they need to do. They need to graduate college. They need to apply to get a job. Like, what's the advice, knowing what you know now, going through an identity crisis? What is something that you wish you had known then that you didn't realize until you got through it?
I'm going to breathe into this one for a moment and get ready to say some stuff I normally wouldn't say on a podcast, but it's coming to me right now and it feels true to share. So let me breathe into this for a second.
Honored.
Okay. So the identity crisis, and I'll explain that word in a way. Crisis actually means that there's a decision point, and you have to go one of two ways. And I had a choice. I had a choice to go towards who I had been or who I wanted to become. And in simplest terms, we have that choice every day. And some days we move what might seem like forwards, and it's actually backwards towards who we were instead of forwards to who we were, and it can oscillate. That was happening for me. So the identity crisis that I faced was to bring my child into this world and replay the traumas that I had in my childhood over my daughter, or to evolve, partner up with my wife, and use the tools and books we were reading and new network we had to parent in the way that was aligned with our souls.
Mm.
And a lot of what I went through, really heavy in the last 4 years, was being able to find my own path without the identity I had tied to my family that I grew up with.
Mm.
I don't know a person yet. I've yet to meet a person on this planet that hasn't had some level of trauma in their childhood and, problems that went on at home and such. And the key that I found and that I've spent the last 4 years doing is learning how to set healthy boundaries with my family. And a lot of those were challenging to set. After I would set them and hang up the phone or send the email, I cried an incredible amount of tears, smashing my hands against a pillow, going for runs, working out to let out all this pain that was trapped in my body. And there was this clash between the image my family held of me in their field and who I actually was and who I wanted to become.
Mm.
I only saw this when I became a parent, because I realized that the universe was giving me this gift of a child that my wife and I had created to make a choice. And there's an awesome book called Boundary Boss by a woman named Terry Cole. She teaches how to set healthy boundaries in your life. And it's taken me 4 years of shaving, going in, looking in the mirror at myself, seeing the way I looked when I was 16, 17 years old, reconnecting with parts of myself that I had abandoned, to be able to see that I have a divine path that my soul has laid out for me. And it's the one I'm going to walk from now on. And the way that my family had previously fit into my life does not work anymore for that. And that came with setting boundaries on visits, boundaries on length of time when somebody comes to visit, getting your own place. A lot of things that were so hurtful and sad for me, because it's like, no, I miss this. I miss this with my close ones. And I know this is for the best. And I know through some spiritual truths I've learned that when you take an action that is truly aligned for you, it's aligned for the other people in your world, because that's the way I believe this universe functions. That if you're in alignment, you're taking action that's in alignment for you, it's in alignment for the rest of the people in whatever way that affects them.
Yeah, I mean, this is so beautiful to hear this in real time, because I know when a couple things. One, I know when you were at the peak of Beard Club, you had the Hollywood Mansion, you guys had cars, you had multiple houses in Southern California. And there was an interview where you had talked about, I think you had built a bed in the back of your pickup truck because you were just giving your master bedroom to anybody. And you had 9 bedrooms in this house and you were giving it to friends. And it's so to hear, like, that's somebody who's living just like free flow, like, I have all these great things, but I'm going to share with everybody. To then the important thing of what you're talking about is creating those boundaries and being very strict about, like you said, not getting a family call randomly, like, setting intention and scheduling it, or if people are going to come and visit, how long they're allowed to actually stay there for. And it just sounds like it's beautiful, because to me, what I'm hearing is years of deep work. That deep work of solitude, of stillness, that nobody wants to do or is scared to do, but in reality, it is the only path to growth. I had just posted something yesterday on my Instagram about, I'm 27 years young today. I've spent all of my 20s solitude, figuring out who I am, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what are my passions, what do I want to do with this life of mine. And I'm so thankful that I did that, because I have a lot of friends that got distracted, were chasing girls, were doing jobs they didn't care about. And now they're like waking up to the reality of like, I don't know what I want to do. Where I'm the opposite end, it's like, I've been putting in those years of work, and I feel thankful for it. But I'm kind of curious, and this has been part of you for since I've started paying attention to you. Where does this spirituality, open-mindedness come from? Is there a moment in your life that woke you? And I think there was a certain moment in Australia. I don't know if that was the moment, but when did you start to stop looking at a tree as a tree and look at it as this like beautiful being of energy and just the way you describe life and the free flow of energy? Like when did this become more aware to you?
Incredible question and recap there, Bobby. So when I had the mansion and I would sleep in the back of my truck and I had such blurry boundaries with friends, those blurry boundaries stemmed from feeling like I didn't have good boundaries in my childhood. And it's next to impossible for a child to set a boundary with their siblings or their parents when you share a household. It's tough. So when I took some space for myself, for one of the first times on the journey, and I went out to Australia, I was introduced to the magical, sacred, proceed with caution world of plant medicine. And through various journeys on psychedelic mushrooms, peyote, Wachuma, mainly peyote. That was my medicine. Peyote combined with hape.
What is peyote?
Peyote is a cactus that you eat and has incredible healing effects. It's a very masculine, energied plant. It's known as the grandfather, grandfather, masculine, whereas ayahuasca is known as the grandmother, feminine. And it helped me heal a lot of my masculine traumas.
Mm.
It takes you on a ride, and I had never experienced anything so beautiful that cracked me open to the depths that it did. And I basically went from growing up in a Christian Catholic household and having a lot of beliefs around Jesus and what God was, to my own experience of believing that that was all a form of mind control, and taking back my consciousness from religion entirely and becoming spiritual. So I feel that I had abandoned myself from spirituality because religion was taking space in that box. And the peyote showed me so much stuff. Mainly one thing I'll share, and again, this is my experience. It can be triggering topics, and it feels good for me to share it. So for when I believed in Jesus, and for the first 18 years of my life, after I did the peyote and I got in touch with my higher self, my soul, the universe, which a lot of people refer to as source, like the divine energy that creates everything that is, I realized that the representation of Jesus in my mind and what it believed was a proxy. It was a doorway that first I give my power to this man, and then through him I connect to God. So the way the story is set up, which I do not believe any of it, is that Jesus was the only son of God and that we follow Jesus. Like, I'll say me, like anyone who has that religion in them. And it was like, my goodness, I have basically put my beliefs into this figure. And then I was like, what does this figure stand for? Well, he stands for sacrifice, sacrificing yourself for others, which is basically what I was doing with bad boundaries, friends, family, different things. You have the ability to change your life path, but no, you'll die for other people's sins. And it's like those two things were so heavy to see. that the plant medicine was showing me, that I had to feel a lot of terror um, to get out of it. And I did. I found my own truth. I journaled out a lot of the stuff that I felt was not serving me anymore. I met my wife, Kat Garceau, who had a profound background in something called EFT, emotional freedom technique. It's tapping. You tap different points on your body to get suppressed traumas and emotions out of the nervous system. And I've done with her in the last, since we've been together 4 years, probably 500 taps. Um,
Wow.
Maybe a couple hundred with her until I learned it fully on my own and then started tapping on my own. And I ejected all beliefs that weren't serving me, all traumas that were stuck in there. And my whole universe started to open up. And the essence of my true self really started to turn on. I started reading about money as energy rather than looking at money with greed or scarcity. I started looking at business much differently. I stopped using the word business because the etymology of the root word business comes from busyness. If you Google etymology of business and projections that I was taking on and projecting onto other people of like, oh, this person doesn't have time for me. They're so busy. And I'd be like, oh, I'm so busy. I don't have time for you. So I dove deep into a lot of language stuff as well. And through all of this exploration, everything in my life now feels spiritual. To me, it can't not be. So I treat every moment as sacred as I can. I always keep a portion of my awareness in my feet. While I'm speaking right now, I can feel my feet glued to the ground while I'm talking with you right here. And I move slower. And a spiritual teacher taught me a saying. It's brilliant. I love it. And it goes like this: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So by slowing down, I was actually speeding up the alignment of my true self.
Wow. Wow, that's really good. You met your wife, would that have been 2017 or
You got
2018?
it. 2017.
2017. So I'm probably, sparking like these are different worlds that you're living in now, but I'm so curious too. Like 2017, you're still with Beer Club.
Mm-hmm.
You are the beard god, the god. You're hanging out with Dan Bilzerian. He's part of your content. You guys have all these houses. I am sure that anywhere you go, there are women just trying to get a piece of you. What was it about her that stood out and caught your attention? Because that's where I'm at in my life right now. I'm trying to find some real love. Okay, I don't need to play this game of like, I'm looking for somebody to build with. So what was it about her that you just saw this light of like, I don't know who this is, but there's something here.
I love it, dude. I love it. Okay. So let me go at this one at a time. You're an epic host, Bobby. I'm fired up. The flow is so good. And I'm really happy we're about to surf into some lighter things now because I wanted to be vulnerable with where I went, but let's do this.
I'm jacked up right now.
First off, Bilzerian, I was at Dan's house maybe 2 months ago. I actually reached out. I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, and I said, dude, I feel really lost right now. And with my purpose and what I'm doing. And I was in a point at another crisis. This is like 2 or 3 months ago where I'm setting some more heavy boundaries with my family and having trouble doing it. So I reached out to Dan, and after not talking for 2 years, he goes, "Why don't you come out and see me in Vegas? We'll hang out and it'll clear your head." And Dan is somebody that I had done some spiritual journeying with, and we've had some incredible times outside of the party scene. So going to his house a couple months ago was an incredible reconnection without any alcohol or other plant medicines or women. It was him, his girlfriend, and myself, and this epic private chef who lights up the best meals, and the basically like the water park in his backyard, and we got to just hang out and ground in. And I myself, it was really powerful. It was the first time I've hung with Dan without the umbrella of Beard Club and an entrepreneurial endeavor over our head. So it was a lot more complete heart to heart. And it really allowed me to take back any remaining parts that were still in my subconscious of like, wow, I'm only married to one woman now. This is the only woman I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. I miss this partying kind of thing and being able to, flirt and be eye candy and date different people. So that was really healing a couple months ago. Now, to your other question of when I met my wife and what was the difference with her and the other women I had met. The day that I met her, she came over and she was in the Olympics. She won a bronze medal for Canada 20 years ago, and for synchronized swimming. And she's been on a path of personal growth ever since. And she came over and she did some body work on me. She was doing this professionally through a company she had started called Activating High Performance, and she would work with guys in the NHL, CEOs, anyone who was really performing high, looking to perform high in like something they did in their world. So she did that work on me through some stretching and different things. And then she said, "Hey, do you want to do some emotional work?" And I didn't even know what it was. And I said, yeah, like my heart was beating in excitement. And after I did a tap with her, um, that was at our house in San Diego. She then came to the mansion in Hollywood, and she said, "Do you want to go on a hike?" And every bit of my resistance was saying no, and my soul was like, "Dude, go on the hike." Not because of her, just because like I was trapped in my mind in that mansion and like addicted to working and addicted to money. It's like hiking's a waste of time. That's not profitable. So I went on the hike and I spilled out a lot of my story and a lot of my pain to the point where I don't even remember really. I didn't remember what I had said. A few days later, she writes me a poem, and this poem hits my phone, Bobby. And the things that she wrote in this poem, she called it hiding behind the mask, and like this false self that I was, and her energy reached in and went just to my heart.
Wow.
And the connection was on. Um, Definitely not without trials and tribulations. The level of connection we share because of one thing is out of this world. And that one thing is vulnerability. We talk about everything. And a former part of myself would have been like, a lot of guys would be like, "Oh, are you bitch whipped? Are you, under control? Are you this? Are you that?" Like, don't tell the girls everything. That's guy talk. And like, I had to get a lot of rid of that junk out of my head that I don't believe at all anymore, because the vulnerability with each other to talk about our whole past, accept each other, use tools like tapping, an exercise called Ho'oponopono. Whenever you're triggered with your girlfriend, wife, partner, you can just say, "Hey, do you want to pause the fight right now?" And you sit down across from each other and you say, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you." And you keep saying that on repeat until the charge of the fight goes way down and you can look at it from a new view. So we've done a lot of healing together, and it's beautiful. Now, to answer your other question of how did I call this woman into my life, how did I meet her, what happened? There was a mantra. This is another full power thing here that a friend of mine taught me. His name was Jared, and he was a deeply spiritual, dialed in genius with a lot of information. And he said there's this song that has its roots in Sanskrit. And the language of Sanskrit had this song that goes, it's called Adi Shakti. And he told me, he said, if you want to call in the woman of your dreams, You must go and sing this whole song 9 times with your hand on your heart, and you need to mean it. You need to sing it and pour all of your love into it. And the one that is meant for you is going to come in. So I looked it up, and you could actually find it if you go on. You can maybe put it in a link or something if people are interested. But if you search
Yeah,
Adi Shakti,
I'll put in the description of the podcast when it comes out.
perfect. So for anyone listening right now, don't hop off and go search this yet. I want to find the right link with the right verbiage, because this is like a full power code to put into the universe and start singing if anyone's thinking of doing this. So after we
I
get
might be
off
the
here,
first one to do it. So by the time this comes out, I've already sang it to everybody in LA. So you might see this. You might see me at Venice Beach this afternoon on the news. So
oh goodness, dude, that's so good. So I'll find the right link.
please.
Adi Shakti, and you're singing your heart out to the feminine energy. I don't think this works for a woman to sing it to call in her man. Perhaps there's a different mantra. So I'm not going to say that I know that that works. I'm only going to say that I followed it the way that he told me to follow it. And I had already met Katherine. Right after I met her, though, I went to Australia for 4 months. And then when I came back, like, the connection was there. And I had other women in my field that I was seeing and playing that archetype, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And after I sung it, it was like, whew, 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 boom, like, oh my gosh, dude, this is my lover.
This is the one.
So I took my paddleboard out to the middle of the lake. I memorized this mantra. I practiced it in my phone, and I went and sung the praises to the sky. Hand on the heart. I sung it 9 times, and then the rest was history. So yeah, it's a full power thing.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful how that's all fell into place naturally, like meeting her and then going to Australia and then coming back, and then she was the one. And God, man, that's just so it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Your relationship with Dan Bilzerian, though, what's been one of the biggest takeaways you've had with him over the years? Because, outside looking in, I'll give context. Outside looking in, as a guy, I even have guy friends of mine, because they know I, put myself as the bearded man. They're always sending me his clips like he's the bearded legend. I'm like, the guy is. I would put you two on a pedestal together, right? You guys are like the beard lords of the world. You guys are definitely like the guys. But of course, he's always putting out that content. He's around the girls. He's got the boats. He's got the cars. He's shooting guns. He's got the man. She's got the jet. And people, they just look at him as like this god of, doing anything and everything he wants. But I'm so curious, because him on a personal level. What's something that you've learned from him?
What I've learned from him came in the last few months. He gave me the honor of reading his book. He printed off a copy when I was at his house before it was published, and I got to read the manuscript. And I learned a lot about the dude. When I was at his house, and I'll only speak from my experience of him and not project anything, because he does like to move fast when he wants to and do big things in his world. Back in the day when we hung out, it was the women, the partying, everything you see on Instagram. And now he had a girlfriend that he's been with for a while at his home, who was really sweet. And 3 of us hung out a few times, and he was a very dialed back, grounded version of himself. That my experience is like writing a book about your life and getting out so much stuff. And his book is filled with traumas that he went through. That I would imagine is incredibly healing. My wife wrote a very similar book about her journey, and it was very healing for her to do that. So now I see him very differently. And if I were to answer your question, what is my biggest takeaway from him? It's a fine line on this one, because I used to do this a lot, and I know that he lives this way. It's following your heart.
Mm.
And the only reason I say it's a fine line, I always follow my heart. My intention is to follow my heart. And what I noticed that with Dan, a lot of times there was so much energy and firepower when we hung out to like, dude, let's just do this. And that energy I think, confuse for my heart when it might have been laced with some ego and maybe some patterns and whatnot. So stripping all of that away, I'd say I took from Dan, like he wants something and then he goes and gets it.
It's great. Yeah, I think that's something that I've tried to preach through all these podcasts. It's like at its core, the goal with these episodes and all the content that I put out there to the world is to not only help people become the best version of themselves, to reach their inner potential, but to become their most authentic selves, to live that authentic life. And that's what it is. It comes down to following your heart and actually listening to your gut of like, deep down inside what you really, really want to do. And although society may say that it's not possible, you can't do this, you can't do that, you really got to lean into it and listen to it, because that's the only way you're going to be able to wake up and actually enjoy what you do every day. I feel very, very fortunate. I have to pinch myself very often. Like, I may not be exactly where I want to be just yet, but I'm so fortunate to wake up every single day having a vision and having purpose to my life and being able to go, I know where I want to go, because it wasn't long ago, just a couple of years ago, where I would wake up and it's that question mark of like, what am I doing? And you stay distracted, you party and you go on dates and you travel and you're doing all these things to keep your mind away from the real question. But when you have that stillness, it's like, what am I actually doing? And I just think it's super, super important. You've had quite a bit of success in your life from all these entrepreneur ventures, whether it was the electronics store, whether it was the Hermosa Pier restaurant, the Cool Box, Dollar Beer Club. What have you learned about success? Because everybody seems to believe that money equals happiness. And I'm so thankful that I've learned that is so not the truth. Just from all the interviews I've done, from all the listening I've done, from all the reading I've done, I know that no amount of money is going to fill up my glass of happiness for a lifetime. What have you learned about success?
Bobby, I don't know what our souls might be doing in another dimension right now. And if you're like asking me, hey, buddy, how vulnerable do you want to be? But the answers that are coming through me to share right now, it's very tempting to bypass my heart and just say something politically correct. But I'm going to choose the vulnerable path and stay on this lane. Shock warning for the audience coming up.
I'm going to have a big, I've never done this with an episode, but before the episode comes out, like in the intro, I'm just going to say, warning, this episode, I'll go through like all the...
Don't listen while driving.
Oh, God.
All right, here we go. Right before we got on this podcast, I checked my bank account. I just had a check bounce in one of my bank accounts for $214, and that's my insurance payment for my truck. So I went to my other account to see how much money I had in there, because tomorrow's the farmer's market and we want to go get some high quality meat. And I have $60 in the other bank account. So take this in, world, right here, as I vulnerably expose this at the deepest of levels. We have so I owe $214 for my truck insurance, and we got $60 in the bank for food tomorrow. The level of happiness in my life, saying this to you right now, I hope the audience can feel it in my voice and hear it in my delivery. The level of trust in my being is that whatever I need is going to come because I'm in alignment, because I trust in the universe as my divine source of abundance, and that the actions I take now are aligned with all of my values and staying in my lane. It's a journey going through the weeds right now. Don't get me wrong. And the reason I say this with so much vulnerability and wanting to share that with the world is when I had Beard Club and we were making 1.3 million a month, 1.4 million. We had a low month and we only made 1.1 million. And I had a credit card with a $50,000 limit. And my life was flowing with the houses and the cars and all of that. I didn't know it, but my heart was empty. I was ridden with anxiety. I was constantly projecting the high energy. I was addicted to alcohol. Not always. I went on good sprints. Like, you know, I could go 6 or 8 months at a time sober, but very extreme.
Wow.
Either pure sober or like really into alcohol. Unbalanced all over my life. Bad boundaries, unbalanced, mentally unwell, emotionally unwell, rich, famous, and miserable. So although I'm speaking from a place of extremes, and that was me then, and in me now, the one beautiful thing I have is we own our house outright. There's no mortgage on it. We own our F-150. There's no loan on it. So there's like this level of safety sitting in those two nests that it's like, all right, we do have food in the fridge for like the next week. And I'm pumped for the new entrepreneurial endeavor I just launched. Mm-hmm. And there's irons in the fire. Like I could feel one about to go boom, and like money is going to change in our picture forever. Cause I went through a journey. I'll grab it right here. This book called Money is Love by Barbara Wilder. Mm. You can only get used copies. She doesn't print it anymore. My wife and I did 3 months of expensive, intensive training with her. And we learned that money is energy. And money is anger, money is greed, money is fear, money is love, money is excitement, money is shame. And there are all these different forms of energy exchange. When I learned this, I did it like I do everything in my life, and I took it down to the core and the base, and I ripped all the roots out. And I've had to learn what it feels like to be broke in the bank account, to know what it feels like to be rich in the heart and rich in my emotions and rich in trust and rich in friendships. The friendships I have now where I'm living, oh my goodness, it's indescribable to be able to call up a friend, doesn't know me as the Beard Club guy, doesn't care that I don't have a big Instagram following anymore, and they're down to hang out. And so many family friends and friends with my children that they have. So it has been a journey, wrapping this all back to, you know, your question of money. The saying, money can't buy happiness. I don't have any tattoos, but if I ever got one, that would, you know, that really rings true. And I say it from experience because I genuinely wasn't happy when I had it, and I'm genuinely happy now. And there's a midpoint. Don't get me wrong. There is a degree of stress. There's as spiritual and guru and grounded and profound as I can be. I'm like, yeah, you know, wonder what the next job's going to be. Okay, we can't go out and do exactly what we would do tonight per se. And COVID has been a massive teacher of this for me, of not going out to restaurants, not buying $30, $35 steaks anymore that I would eat at home, because the other cuts of meat like ossobuco and slow roast that go in the oven and stew meat are so much cheaper, but they take a lot longer to cook. So I'm like cooking my food slower and it's a lot cheaper. So yeah, dude, without, you know, running on too much deeper, there's a midpoint. Yeah. I'm pumped to surf back into the launch of my new endeavor and be able to recreate myself financially in the lane of money is love. I love what I do, and I do what I love.
Yeah. So, I mean, literally going right into it, viral response, like it makes so much sense to me, because Beard Club was built from a very organic place. It was through, from what I've read and listened to, it was through the content that you guys were creating. It wasn't really, you guys in the beginning, you weren't doing paid ads. You weren't really, you weren't really doing any influencer stuff. It was purely like word of mouth. And I think that's probably how I came across you guys. I don't remember the moment, but like even looking back on like some of your early videos, like the hockey room one where you're like, you walk out, there's a guy shaving his beard and it's kind of like a little jerk at Dollar Shave Club. You like flip the shirt over the dude's guy, you fucking crack the shave, then you're going out, you're applying beard oil, you got a line to the left of you, it looks real, I don't even know if it's real, then you're
real.
Then oh my god, then there's guy, it's all like shot like one take, then you're slugging a beer. And then you like the end cut is you walking to the shower with two women there to wash your beard. And it's like beer club. I'm like, all right, where do I sign up? Because this is an emotional connection now. It's no longer just about the product. It is that emotion. And so what is the plan with viral response? I think you recognized, and the timing of doing this podcast was crazy. I actually sent your interview with Gerard Adams, where you actually went into depth and you explained your proven formula to two of my buddies that are co-founders of a company. And I sent it to them and I'm like, this is what you need to do. You need to create content using this formula. What is the plan with viral, and how do you plan to take a lot of this experience you learned with Dollar Beer Club with these viral videos and implement it and help, it seems like, other brands?
Gotta say it again, Bobby. You're a legend, dude, and you make my job easy here. Your segues of picking me up where I left off and surfing into the next thing. This is some powerful
We're
flow.
just gliding, babe. We're just gliding through. Little Friday afternoon. There's no better place I'd rather be right now than this conversation.
Likewise. So the evolution of Proven, which was birthed in the Hollywood Mansion. It then turned into Emotional Click, which is the name I was going to launch with. And then it turned into Viral Response. Viral video meets direct response marketing, viral response. So what I have learned is if I'm saying do what you love and love what you do, the only part I loved, and it's hard for me to even say this because I'm still like, wait, you loved the other parts. I'm like, no, I did not. The only part I loved about being an entrepreneur and a CEO for me was making the videos. I loved it so much. I can't even say that I really loved writing the scripts. I would write the scripts anxiously, quickly, because all I wanted to do was get on set. Through the evolution of this, and because I've received so much inspiration from Dollar Shave Club, Poopery, Squatty Potty, big viral videos out there, I was writing them like off the cuff, fast speed. I remember I wrote that script you talked about with the lion and stuff. Timeout, side note. So that line was very real. It was very expensive and very scary. And
it was like 3 feet from you.
There's a little line of barbed wire, and the lion is trained that when he sees the barbed wire, that's like not much thicker than dental floss, dude, to not go past it. But I'm still there, like delivering my line, and this beast is right there. And you have to like sign forms and stuff that you're putting your life on the line. And the lion was rattled. He's like eating steaks in one bite. He didn't want to perform. So he's walking around the ice, just doing laps like a friggin' lion Zamboni, dude. And then he comes back. It was nuts. So that script I wrote on an airplane. I found that like when I was up in the sky and away from what I call congested thought traffic, like when you're in dense places, and that's what LA was for me. I could be a little more clear, but I couldn't write my scripts again and again with comfortability. They were only written anxiously, and they were only written quickly for me to go act in them. When I got out of Beard Club, I spent the last when I got out of Beard Club, I didn't touch Proven for like a year or two. We moved a few times. From 2017, we moved from Australia to Toronto, to Florida, to North Carolina, to Quebec, where we are now. A lot of moving parts. I was like, what am I going to do? What do I love? And I was doing the training with Barbara from Money is Love. I spent 2 years creating a formula so I could write scripts. And it's an epic 5-page formula that I can now plug in any business. I get them to fill out a creative brief and tell me the 3 main adjectives that describe your company. Who's the face of your company? What product or services do you sell? What's your price point? What's an offer you do now? And I get all this data, and then I sit there, and I love it, dude. I plug it in. I learned how to use Final Draft, so I'm actually writing in script format instead of writing it like chicken scratch on paper and then handing it to the team I had back then, which deeply grateful for. Corey and Dobie were 2 legends that always, and Tim took my scripts, and they'd convert them nicely. That Beard Lion one they did. And after coming up with this formula and a lot of trial and tribulation, I realized that Proven had fear in it. One of the letters in Proven stood for vilitation, the V, which was villainize your competition. Now I don't believe in competition. Competition is an illusion. There's no such thing as competition. If you say, wait, of course there's competition. We are a car company and there's another car company that sells cars. They're competition. Well, if you believe in competition, then sure, the belief of competition and that you need to bring in more money than your competitor, or there's not enough for both of you, then you'll attract the belief of scarcity, which is not the true source of this universe of everyone has what they need in the divine blueprint of life. When you're connected to your soul, when you're connected to your high self, and when you follow that path. So I had to strip Proven down and remove a lot of the fear that was in there. And through learning about money is love, I felt that when you talk about that scene of me slapping that guy on camera when he's shaving, even though it was through the nature of comedy, I was still shaming him. I was shaming everyone through that image who shaves. And that's money is shame. And a lot of people that bought through Beard Club, whether they realized it or not, they're going, yeah, I don't shave. I'm buying this oil. Money is shame. Now I have shame-filled money in my field, and I would use it on things I was ashamed of. I'm going to go drink a lot of alcohol tonight. I'm going to go piss money away on a mansion that I don't even really want because I need to uphold an image because I feel shame that I'm not in alignment with my true self without even knowing any of this. This is like all under the table kind of energy going on in my subconscious. So anyways, viral response. It's a love-based formula. We're using love and only love, abundance, comedy, still comedy, that you can market and not project shame, not project fear, not project scarcity, any of that stuff. And in turn, the money that comes in from these videos I'm now writing are going to be love-based dollars from people that feel loving when they give it. And no one's hurt. No one's shamed. And I have my first shoot coming up next week. I'm pumped for it. The way that I've set up viral response is there are 3 levels of it. Level 1 is it's an upfront small fee and then a percentage of how well the video does. Level 2 is only a fee, no percentage of the video. And level 3 is I do everything soup to nuts. I write the script. I come out with my team and we film it on the spot wherever you are. So this is the birth of a new era.
Yeah, you're gonna absolutely crush it. I mean, you already have a proven track record of doing it. And immediately, even just hearing you explain it, I'm just like, when my roommate gets back, I need to have a conversation with him and say he needs to look into you. And he's already a fan of some of the Beard Club stuff that I had sent him a couple days ago. But that's great. It sounds like you're finding like that next step, which is really beautiful, especially after years of like, the one thing that really caught me when we were talking about when you and your wife had kind of met was when she wrote the poem and it was underneath the mask. Mm-hmm. And just through this conversation today, it almost, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the beard almost has resembled you hiding behind the traumas of childhood, because when you were a child, you probably couldn't grow that beard. I remember when I was 16, I could barely start to grow a chin strap, and then I grew a really thin beard, and it evolved over the years. But it really, to me, and the vulnerability aspect too of how vulnerable you've been today, and just in your interviews in the last couple of years is really important. But it really is, it's beautiful how the beard became like that mask to kind of allow you to step away from this past life to then go on and do all these entrepreneur things and build a brand, but then to see it full circle where you stripped away the thing that gave you confidence, gave you a new identity, that you were willing to do that, to be vulnerable, to face yourself for a couple of years. And even Scooter Braun has talked about that in a recent interview with Jay Shetty, where he, for the longest time, has been running away from Scott Braun, which is his real name, Scott. And he's been using Scooter as that identity. And now he is trying to rebrand himself back to that Scott. I'll have to send you the podcast. I think you'll really enjoy it. But I admire your ability to face those demons and to look at yourself in the mirror and to be willing to go to that length to confront some of these traumas that, like you said, we all go through traumas. It's all relative to what you've been through in your life. So it doesn't matter what somebody has gone through. I, myself included, have had my own traumas. We all go through something. And I think this has just been a great conversation of just hearing how it's all manifested and how it's all gotten you to where you are today, which you are grounded, you are in your power. Yeah, this has just been so good, man.
Dude. This has been incredible. I'd love to share one more thing that comes.
Please, I got 4 quick cues after this, so please share whatever you got. They'll be kind of like rapid fire.
All right, here goes. So one of the gifts I've unlocked is the ability to freestyle when I've stripped away all this junk out of me.
Yeah, I came across your song on YouTube, actually.
Oh, which one, dude?
Road to the Show.
Yeah, Spotify. Is it on YouTube too?
Somebody has it on YouTube.
Okay, cool. Yes, I have 3 songs on Spotify.
Okay.
Road to the Show, Big Tice, and Healing Hand. And this joy that I have, I love to put into a freestyled poetry a stream of what's been captured over a period of time. So I'll do my best right now to drop into a freestyle here about this episode.
Get it, baby.
Bobby on his journey, man. This guy sure knows how to flow. From his purpose in youth to the place we're at today, the Bearded Man podcast, hip, hip, hooray. You're on the path, and when you get up and when you rise each day, you know what you're doing. No more distractions. It's all play. Play in the lane that makes you feel good and abundant too. Thank goodness I found that path and have reconnected with you. Because the things we said on this podcast, recorded in our flow, I hope somebody can take some of this knowledge to all the places they will go. Because when you tune in to your true inner self, you can realign with that spiritual wealth. Setting boundaries that are unhealthy for your health will rise you to the top, and you can do it kind of stealth for a few years while you cry out the tears. Maybe even shaving off the beard so that you can grow to your next level and graduate inside so that that crisis no longer comes in to collide. With that Adi Shakti mantra, finding your wife so that you can confide in your other half to realign your path. Money is love will bring in all the truest joy-filled cash.
Unbelievable. I can't even believe you just did that. Oh my God. You are a beautiful human being, my friend. I don't know how you were able just to freestyle that and pull so many nuggets of what we've talked about today while incorporating into your own life and yeah. I'm speechless. That was phenomenal. I've never had anybody freestyle on a podcast and that was the one that needed to happen. So I appreciate that, and that is phenomenal. Matter of fact, I'll make sure to have his Spotify linked up in the description of this podcast.
Yeah,
I did not
dude.
see that coming today, but we'll add that to the bio. Final cues for you, and then we'll wrap up. These are kind of quicker, so you can go as far as you want with them, or you can kind of leave it as just fire off. If you could go back and tell yourself one piece of advice at any point of your life, what would you tell yourself, and when would it be?
The only thing I'll preface with is that when you go into these kinds of questions, I've already integrated all of the learning from choosing a choice that I wouldn't choose again.
Mm.
So everyone keep that in mind. I don't believe there's any wrong choice, because as long as you learn from it, you're solid.
I agree.
With that prefacing my answer, I'd go back to when I was 16. And I'd say don't smoke the weed. And start aligning with doing what you love. Don't smoke the weed and don't go to university. Stay off the drugs and stay on the path that wants to become entrepreneurial. I tell that to my 16-year-old self.
That's great. That's great. What's an area of your life you need to put more effort into?
Giving back to the community. And it's a challenge being a father of two little ones. And so one thing I have been doing lately that I'm now going to do more of, because I'm saying it right here on this podcast, is I'm going to put a better effort into picking up all the trash that I see on the ground, given I'm not like with one of my daughters and on a time crunch. Like if I have to hold her and pick her up, or actually, no, I can hold her and pick up the trash. Only a time crunch. So I'm going to put more effort into, I've already been doing it and I've started picking up. I had a buddy, guy named Russell Raven. He's a legend. And he goes, if you see it, it's yours. So I have this like dream that imagine if everyone treated the trash like that, I think the planet would be clean in like a week. So I'm going to put more effort into giving back to my community. And I'm going to do that through picking up all the trash I see.
It might take about 6 months if you're in Venice, California, to pick all that shit up. But they're doing a better job. And let me just say this before I get to the next question. You're being of service by doing this podcast. I understand you want to, when you say be a service to your community, I would imagine maybe that means directly where you reside now. But I want you to know that you're being of service by taking the time to be on this podcast today, because I know that anybody that listens to this conversation is going to be impacted in some way or some form, whether it's the entrepreneur stuff, spiritual stuff, the trauma, the authenticity, the vulnerability. You're being of service to a community, it's the Bearded Man community. So know that I appreciate you being of service to us
Bobby,
today.
I have a different answer then. Actually, I have an answer to tag on. This is my second answer. What do I want to put an effort into more? Doing more podcasts. I love doing podcasts where it feels aligned and it's expansive and it's fun. And I used to do a lot of these through a very different energy, as you mentioned. So that's an area of my life I want to put in more focus, because it's also a great way to tell people about what I'm doing. Totally. And get the word out while sharing wisdom and knowledge. So I love podcasts, dude.
That's great. Knowing that, I'm going to keep that in mind as I communicate with other people that I know in the space, and if it's of interest to them, I'm going to push them to you, and we're going to get you out we're going to keep you on this press run through the Zoom of the remote podcast.
Thank you.
What is the first step anyone can take to reaching their inner potential?
In my experience, I believe that one of the most powerful steps that anyone can do today to going towards their inner potential is to align with money being love in your life and doing what you love to create money. Because it's my belief that the money is the number one thing. Money and say money is the number one thing in my experience that derails people from their divine path. And from a teaching from the book Money is Love, there's an exercise, and it sounds like this: shring, shring, shring. So the word shring, SHRING, the vibration of the word shring puts you in alignment with the earth's abundance that is in alignment with your path. So when I started shrinking, goodness, dude, my wife and I have shrank, it's in the neighborhood of 250 times. You shring 108 times per shring. And the way you do that is you get mala beads. If you search MALA, mala beads, they're in your local crystal shop, spiritual store. You can get them off Amazon. And you touch a bead for each shring until you've done it 108 times. And stuff that's not aligned will slowly start leaving your field, and stuff that is aligned will start coming into your field. And long story short, when we were selling our home in Florida, we had about 25 showings with not a single offer. I said, all right, we're getting spiritual with this. I called up the real estate agent. I said, dude, can you do something with us called shringing? And he wants to sell the house. And he's like, Chris, you're nuts, but sure. Me, this guy, Dan Galapo, incredible real estate agent in Lighthouse Point, Florida. And my wife, the three of us shring 108 times with the intention to sell the home. I kid you not, Bobby. 15 minutes after we shring, we get a call for another showing. This wasn't anything new because we had already had 25 showings in 3 weeks. So showings were abundant. When that showing call came in, I said, babe, you watch. This is going to be it. I said it to Dan too. The next day that showing comes, they buy the house.
Oh my God.
For 98% of our asking price.
Wow.
And that's one example of how I've seen this shring work magic. So that's the first step I would recommend to anyone that you can do right now. If you don't even want to buy the mala beads, you can get a pencil and paper and do 108 checks. Yeah, dude.
Shring.
I
love that. We're gonna get. I love your take. All right, time to get spiritual. Let's get this ball on the roll. That's great. Last question for you today. Somebody made it through 72 minutes of this podcast. What is one challenge you have for them as they wrap up this podcast today? Any challenge in the world. What's one challenge you have for them after they finish listening to this episode?
What someone may experience as a challenge after they listen to this episode is feeling overwhelmed with, where do I start? Like, do I need to set boundaries in my life? I'm going to start shrinking. I need to go sing Adi Shakti. Like, if you're like anything like me and you like absorbing all of the information in something, what I would often experience is being so overwhelmed by multiple awesome things and then doing none of them, or doing them in a state of overwhelm. So my advice is, if you feel challenged by an overwhelming emotion, that there's a lot of things you want to do from this podcast, do only the one that lights you up most. Just do that and follow that one. Because whether it's the Adi Shakti, or you go and read Money is Love, or you start shrinking, or you want to set boundaries in your life and read Boundary Boss, it doesn't matter which one of those 4 roads you take. All 4 of them are going to lead you to pure gold. If you reach the end of one of those roads and you've shrank your brains out and you can't shrink anymore, or, you've read the books cover to cover, come listen to the episode again. It's not going anywhere. rather than feeling overwhelmed that where do you start. So pick the one that that resonates most to you and do that one.
Yep. And don't be afraid if it's not resonating, pop over to the next one, the next one. And there is no right order. It's just not getting anxious about, I got to do all these things. You just go, nope, start with this one, then go to the next, and then go to the next. So I love that's a great way to look at it. Christopher, this is, I don't mean this lightly. This has been an absolute honor to, I was looking back at the email today. It was May of 2019, that initial reach out to you. And I think that was when the conversation started flowing. I think I probably had reached out even earlier in 2019. I think at the time you weren't checking your email as much. And then you had came across it. And then we chatted on the final thread, which then started around May of 2019. But so worth the wait. I think there's been so much more even growth probably from May of 2019 to now. And, I really mean it, dude. I don't think if it wasn't for you and it wasn't for Dollar Beer Club, I have to say Dollar Beer Club because I know it evolved, but I know it as Dollar Beer Club, the OG. I consciously wouldn't have had the confidence to really go all in on this Bearded Man branding. And, it's become so much a part of me too, which is just kind of crazy. And I love it. I love the uniqueness and I love everything about owning a beard. And it's like, I don't think I'm like Mr. Masculine guy because I have it, but it's like, I'm just leaning into a blessing of a gene that I have that I can grow in. So I'm just going to rock it. But, in all seriousness, like just such a fantastic conversation. So appreciative of your time and your energy today. And, getting a chance to kind of just hear firsthand of some of that growth over the last couple of years. These are the type of episodes that I look for. And I knew this was going to be a fantastic conversation, but once you started freestyling, I knew it was signed, sealed, and delivered. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast today, man. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Bobby, for having me. Like I said, you're a phenomenal host. Thank you for bringing back the good vibes of the OG beard oil right there. Thank you for mentioning my music. If anyone wants to check that out on Spotify or Apple Music, Christopher Stoikos is my artist name, my full name. And my wife and I are in the process of making a song called Money is Love, inspired by the book. And it's loaded with some full power stuff in there. And then, if anyone wants to see parts of my journey on Instagram, see Stoikos17 is where you can find me on there. And then, like I said before, viralresponse.ca if you're looking to take your entrepreneurial endeavor to the next level. That's where to find me. Bobby, thank you. Thank you to all the listeners. And that's all for today.
That's great. I'll have all of Christopher's socials, his website, his music, his Instagram tagged up in the link, in the description of this podcast. So if you're listening right now and you want to check him out, please go into the description. I'll have it all laid out. I would be very curious, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you're listening in on, post it to your IG story, tag Christopher. He is, like he said, at CSTOIKOS17, tag him, and then tag me at Bobe. That's BO, 3 B's, 4 A's, and Y. Share the podcast on your IG story. Let us know what the biggest takeaway was, what the learning was. There was a lot of gems, a lot of nuggets, and I would be extremely curious to hear what was the takeaway for you. So please take a moment today to share that out, and we would be so much appreciative. Christopher Stoikos, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Bobby. It's been a pleasure as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Bearded Man Podcast. See ya!